Start. Welcome to K-State's Research and Extension's First Friday e-call. The purpose of this call has always been to nurture the small businesses and inspire entrepreneurship across the state. Because of this fast-changing COVID-19 pandemic, we've changed our speakers this month to be more timely and to show you inspiring examples of how local communities have responded to the pandemic. So first off, I'll introduce them as we go. We first have Heather Hartman. There we go. Heather is the Executive Director of the Solomon Valley Economic Development. And Heather, you're up. See, we need to unmute you. I'm sorry. Let's see. There we go. By the way, you're all muted until somebody unmutes you, and you won't be able to unmute yourself. So put your questions in the chat box, and Jan Steen or Jamie Menon will help me to ask those questions after we're done. Thanks, Heather, for being with us.
All right, thank you. I am going to start my timer so I make sure I stay on time. I get a little chatty. So my name is Heather Hartman. I'm the Economic Development Director for Solomon Valley Economic Development. I also go by the title of Mitchell County Community Development, and then I sit on our Community Foundation Board. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we've done here, and I'm going to give you a little demographic so you know who I am and where we are. So I live in Beloit, Kansas, and population a little under 4,000. Mitchell County is the county, and we're a little under 6,000. We're in north central Kansas. So you have a little idea of how small we are. We're not very big, but we had some things that we kind of did here that most of them we borrowed from other places, and then we had a few unique ideas also. So we just want to share those with you today. So I want to start by telling you that we worked together. There were 3 entities that did this together. It was Chamber of Commerce, so Julia Raby with our Beloit Area Chamber of Commerce, and then it was the Executive Director from our Community Foundation, Colleen Eberly. I think it's kind of unique because we came at it from 3 different views. We came at it from Chamber of Commerce, Economic Development, and also Community Foundation. I think it was helpful that we did that because we were all kind of looking out for our own organizations. But we knew when we started that the #1 priority we had was to get money revolving back into our economy as quickly as possible. We met pretty early on. I think we actually met on March 14th or 15th to just kind of start talking about some ideas and how we could do things, because even though that seems like a really, really long time ago, it wasn't, but it feels like it. And we knew things were going to happen. We weren't sure that it was all going to happen the way it did, but we knew things were going to start coming down, and we needed to be able to help our businesses. And so one of the things that we had seen being done somewhere else, and it was actually being done in Manhattan, was a gift card program. And so we knew we wanted to talk to our businesses directly, and we weren't sure how to do that. There was only 3 of us. We had quite a few businesses in the county. So one of the very first things we did was created a private Facebook page. It seems super silly. It doesn't seem like something that would have been super helpful at the time, but it was. It was a simple private Facebook page. The only people we allowed on it were our business owners or managers. One of the first things that was good was that they were able to talk to each other. So it wasn't just that we were talking to them or we were giving information to them, but they were able to talk to each other. So, you know, sometimes there's a lot of silos in a small community, and it was easier for them to do that through Facebook. So that was great. We didn't allow other people on that page, so they could talk openly and freely. Obviously, since I'm the Economic Development Director, some of the first things that were coming out were all the state and federal programs, and so I needed to be able to get information out to them very quickly, and that was the easiest way for us to do that. But when we started that, we started asking them things that they wanted to do, things that they would be interested in participating in, so we definitely had business buy-in before we did this. But what we ended up doing was we launched a program called Mitchell County Strong. Colleen was able to whip us up a website pretty quickly, and that is our landing page. That's still our landing page. It's still out there. You can go check it out. It's mitchellcountystrong.com. It's a great page for us to be able to get our information out very quickly to people. And so we started with a gift card program, trying to get money back into the businesses. This was before a lot of our businesses were forced to close. So it was something that we started before a lot of the stay-home orders came into effect, but we still knew we wanted to be able to get that out. So it was a buy one, give one gift card program. The biggest point we had was to get our businesses online. In a lot of small communities, you know that your businesses don't have a great online presence. A lot of them don't have even a website. Most of them use Facebook. And we had very, very few that could even do e-commerce. So being able to get our businesses face online was probably one of the best things that we could do. So we created a little shop, and it really just included a logo of the business and a small description of who they were, but then it became a one-stop shop. So anybody could go on to the website and shop at any of our local businesses, whether they were open or closed. We sold gift cards in increments of $25, and you could use it from $25 to $1,000, no matter what you wanted to spend. And it was easy for them to do that because it was a one-stop place. So our businesses obviously appreciated that. Just for some technical things, in case you're curious, we ran our reports once a week, and we processed checks once a week to go back out to our businesses. But we left it up to them if they wanted to change that sale into an actual gift card, if they wanted to create a gift certificate, or whether they were allowing the customer to just use that receipt. So if I was a customer and I went on and spent $25 at my hair salon to get my grace colored, then I would get a receipt that just said, you know, Heather Hartman spent this at this salon, and then I could take that receipt in when our salon's ever open. I can take that receipt in and give that to them. They can trade it for a gift card, or they can just use that receipt as proof of purchase. The nice thing was that even 3 days in, I think we had over $12,000 worth of sales, and we were able to start sending money, cash money, back to those businesses very quickly. Obviously, it helped a lot of them keep their lights on during some of this. So that was an important part. The other side of the program was a give one. So it was a buy one, give one. Buy a gift card and we'll match it with a gift grocery assistance to a family in need. So we were able to send that back to people in the community. We did that on the website also. We just set it up, and it's a simple application. We worked with all of our nonprofits before we started that. So we worked with our food bank and our pregnancy center and our ministerial alliance, and just said, we don't want to duplicate programs, but we want to be able to help you give grocery assistance to people in need. Our food bank, like probably so many others, is run by a lot of volunteers, and most of them are retired. So our food bank was one of the first places that closed. They weren't allowed to have the volunteers in there. And so they took us up on the offer to continue to do grocery assistance to people that could get out. So we were able to do that pretty quickly. The Chamber of Commerce donated the first $5,000 to be able to send that out very quickly. So we run that report also once a week. Anyone can apply. Again, it's a simple application. We really just wanted to know where you worked, have your hours been affected, how many dependents you have in your house. And just for technical, so you guys understand, we just pay $25 per dependent in each house. So our minimum was 25, and we maxed it out at 100. And then we told people that they could apply once every other week. I'm very shocked, but our grocery assistance hasn't really taken off. I'm not sure if we're still not getting it to the right people, but we filled every application that we've received, and I think we have done, I think we've done maybe 50, 75 applications. We really haven't done that many. But we're going to continue to open that up, even though we feel that the gift card program will probably maybe fade off a little bit when things are able to start opening again. We feel the grocery assistance will be needed for quite a while. All right, so the next thing that we did was we wanted to just do some kind of fun things to direct traffic back into that website. And so we did some other smaller things. We did something called Hungry Heroes. You could nominate a first responder or frontline person to get lunch. And you could also nominate, and you could also donate. The nominations were a lot of fun. We had a nomination form on the website. You could nominate a hero, which was great because the people that we thought about were obviously your health departments and your hospitals. But people nominated, obviously, the pharmacies, the grocery stores, which was huge. The grocery stores are, working overtime there for a while. Our trash trucks, people nominated all kinds of things that we didn't probably think of. You could get some donations in there, which we did. People were very generous on their donations. And so we bought lunch from a local restaurant, and then we delivered those about every other day. We have quite a few nominations still left to fill in there. We still have some money, so we'll continue those on for a little while. It was kind of a nice little uplifting, heartwarming thing. We put some great pictures on Facebook, and we directed people back to that website. And we could tell every time we did one of those Hungry Heroes campaigns and directed people back to the website, more people shopped on for the businesses. So it was a good plan. The next thing we did, which again, we've borrowed a lot of those ideas from other people, but this one we kind of came up with on our own. We knew that we wanted to continue to help our businesses. People were very generous in their gift cards. I probably didn't give you that total, but we're close to $50,000 in gift cards that have been sold, which is pretty good for a small community. And people were pretty generous, but we still weren't reaching everyone. And so again, we went back to our private Facebook page, we talked to our businesses, and we said, we have an idea. We would like to do some sort of online auction. Is it something you'd be interested in? And of course, they jumped on it. So we allowed every business to come up with 5 items that they wanted to enter into the online auction. We had an excellent local auctioneer who worked with us. He was all for the program, and we're very thankful because he waived all the seller's fees. Usually on an auction, you'll have a seller's fee, and he waived all those. So the businesses were able to enter an item that they wanted, up to 5 items that they wanted. They could set a bottom dollar, whatever they wanted to be for their bottom dollar, and then they could set some sort of reserve numbers in there also. But anything that they set, they knew they would at least be able to bring home, and they had no seller's fee. We did it pretty quickly because we thought the stay-at-home order was going to be lifted. And so we started that last Wednesday. We ended it last Saturday. So we really only ran it a few days. The auctioneer took care of all of the details, which was amazing for us. So it was really just something we had to promote, and we were able to pass off to someone else. They took care of everything. There was over 130 items on there. It really was a lot of fun. He does a great online auction. The thing that I really love is that if someone bids on something in the last minute, I think, it adds another minute. So someone can't sneak in the last second and buy something out from under you. So there was some friendly competition. We did some silly things like we said, if you post a picture or selfie or a TikTok of you shopping, you're eligible to win $100 from the chamber. We had some extra little prizes in there. There were a couple of people that donated their items back to our relief fund, which we haven't talked about yet, but we have a relief fund also. The auction went really well. We were pretty happy with it. I think it ended at like $35,000. There's a couple more sales that will hopefully finish out today. We gave them till today to finish it, so we're hoping the auction will be over $50,000. All of those dollars went right back in. $50,000 went right back into the businesses, so they got checks for the full amount of what they wanted to set that at. Quite a few things obviously went over what they asked. The businesses were pretty creative. They put things together. It wasn't just, a bottle of shampoo. It was, one of my favorites was to bid on the very first haircut from a salon. So I thought that was kind of fun. To bid on, people went together so you could get flowers and dinner and a movie. So the theater and the flower shop and the movie theater all worked together. So they were pretty creative. There were some really fun things. I know we got several things in our household. So it was a good time. Again, it was more of a fun, uplifting thing, but it was still dollars back into our businesses. Okay, so then through it all, we also created a disaster relief fund. We're an affiliate of Greater Area Salina Community Foundation, and so we worked with them to create a disaster relief fund. It wasn't something that we had ever had set up before. It was something brand new to us. We did not make it COVID specific, so it will be here for now and then forever. People were extremely generous. We sent out just a simple letter to all of our past donors and also some of our grant recipients and just said, we understand this is happening, but here's what we're doing and here's what we have set up. Again, if you just give people a vehicle to be able to give money, it's amazing to me the people that will send in money. So we're at about 26, 27,000 in disaster relief. And those are dollars that we can use now for our nonprofits. And then also be available in the future if we need it. So overall, and I am almost a minute shy, look at me, but overall we've done 50,000, almost 50,000 on our gift card sales. We haven't updated it, so you guys are the first to know, but I think we're right at our goal for 50,000 in gift card sales, pretty close to 50,000 on our online auction, and about 25,000 in our disaster relief fund. So for a small community of, 6,000 people, if we can put $125,000 back circulating in the economy very quickly, that was kind of our goal. So that's what we did. This is my contact information. Our website is mitchellcountystrong.com. Please check it out. We think that our website director did a really good job of just putting nice information up there, also figuring out ways to be partners with us. So I would take any questions at the end, or please contact me otherwise. Look at me. I had like 52 seconds left.
That's fantastic. So now the pressure is on for Tara and Bethany. So thank you so much. That was fantastic information. And it's a really good affirmation of the fact that if you ask, people will help. They want to help. We just need to give them the vehicle. So thank you so much for an inspiring example of that. Okay. I believe I've unmuted. Thank you again. Let's see if, there we go. Tara.
All right. I hate following Heather. She does such a good job. Okay, well, hello, I'm Tara Vance. I'm the Executive Director of the Norton County Community Foundation. But for 5 minutes, I'm going to talk to you about something that has nothing to do with community foundation work. But a couple weeks ago, we were doing a Northwest Kansas call, and Heather had given a very similar speech to that. And then we also heard from Stacy from Ellsworth County. And just a side note, I happen to personally be, I date the owner of Jamboree Foods, and we had been looking for long before COVID, trying to figure out how to do online ordering. Well, Stacy had given this presentation, and this is the power of sharing information, about how she had worked with their local grocery store in Ellsworth County as the economic development director. She had said she went in and put this jeans click list together. And I was like, that's really cool. So I totally shamelessly stole her idea. I told her I did. She was fine. And she would actually be talking about the online ordering for grocery stores, but she wasn't able to join on the call today. So I'm going to give you what we've done at our 5 locations at the Jamboree Foods in Northwest Kansas. You can see there, Nancy's pulled up our website. We have locations in Norton County, Rollins County, Graham County, Ness County, and Logan County. So I'd like to point that out, that none of those counties yet have a COVID positive case, which makes this interesting. But we were prepared and definitely interested in keeping the number of interactions with people as low as possible. In Ellsworth County, just some of their stats, I know at one point the grocery store had reported that they were having 70 online orders a day. So that's at least 70 people that weren't coming into the store, which is really significant. This is kind of just a quick overview of, or just a snapshot of what our app looks like. And you're welcome to go to that website and look at it. But basically, originally we had used a Google form, and that's what Ellsworth had done. And after 1 week, the staff was telling me, if you've got to change this because we're going crazy. There just wasn't a ton of options. And so I dug a little deeper into, okay, what are some online forms? I found FormSite online and developed this very basic, as you can see, online order form. And so it's basically just, there's no brand names, there's not a lot of fluff to it. It's real basic, but it got the idea. And the provide details box allows people to add additional details. So for example, if you wanted a certain brand of pineapple, you could write that in the provide details box there. So people have done really well. I will say there's been some very specific things we've added to it as we've gone along, some specific questions, but it has eliminated people who were unsure, felt unsafe, nervous about going into the grocery store. It's eliminated those people from having to do that. Curbside pickup, I should say we offer delivery and curbside pickup. I believe Ellsworth had done the same thing. And I think a lot of grocery stores that I've seen around the state have done the same thing. So that's been really beneficial. And I see people on there who are moms, and they have a car full of kids and they just don't want to get out, so they take advantage of the curbside delivery. So it's been very well received. In our 5 locations, we average probably 15 to 20 online orders a day. I would expect a lot higher number if we ever had a positive case in our communities, but hopefully we don't. So, and I will say that we plan to keep this going. Like I said, this isn't something that we're like, oh yeah, we'll do it now. We've always wanted to. We want it to be more integrated with pricing and sales and our online app and that sort of thing, but we will get there. This has been a really good interim gap for that. So it's very easy to do if you're in economic development or some other community leadership role and you could help your local grocery store do this. I will say this took 16 or so hours to create, so it's not without some time, but it really isn't hard. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. But I'd rather talk about community foundation work. So I'm going to let Bethany Shirk, our Director of Operations and Communications, talk about what we've done at Norton County Community Foundation to kind of in a holistic response to COVID-19.
And if you're feeling frustrated because you can't see more of the site, it's because these are static slides, and feel free to go into Jamboree Foods Kansas to see the rest of it.
Okay, Tara, I'm proud of you. You did 5 minutes exactly. So our response at the Norton County Community Foundation has really been in 2 phases, which I'll talk about phase 1 first. So phase 1 was really targeted for our key market, which are our nonprofits and our charitable organizations. And that phase consisted of kind of 2 pieces, the initial research and then the action. So the first thing that we did, and this was right away in the middle of March, I think March 15th, 16th, was we created a charity needs assessment survey with the goal of understanding both the current and the expected needs of our nonprofits in the county as it related to COVID-19. So we created a really simple survey using Google Forms that consisted of about a dozen questions, and it asked things like, have you had to cancel a fundraiser because of COVID-19, or which of the services that you provide are seeing heightened utilization as a result of the virus. So we sent out that survey to all of our nonprofit partners, and we shared it via email, we shared it via social media, and then we also put it on our website. A quick note about our website, we did create a COVID-19 specific page on our website that houses all of our programs, resources, information, also resources from the county and from the state. And so we've just continued to add to that page as the weeks have gone on. You can click to the next slide if you want. So with that survey, we received quite a few responses within the first 48 hours. Some of the responses that we received from our organizations were things like, yes, we've had to cancel some events, or we foresee having to cancel events in the future. Some of our nonprofits, our theater here in town is a nonprofit, and obviously they were affected by having to close their doors, and so they had obvious concerns about things like operations. And the rest of them really at that point at least were, we don't know what our needs are, but we know we're going to have them. So we took all of those results from the survey, and then we went to kind of this next step, which was to create our emergency grant funding program as a way to be ready to respond to the needs as they started to come up, which that's the next slide. So we committed at the Community Foundation $25,000 to this program. We had several qualifications to apply for our organizations. So they had to be a nonprofit or a charitable organization either in or serving Norton County. They did have to be able to prove that they had a need that was caused directly by COVID-19. And then they had to demonstrate a clear plan of use for their funds once received. So we did limit each application request to $2,500, but we do allow organizations to apply more than once because we knew that short-term needs and long-term needs can be very different. And, you know, one of our nonprofits might have had a need right away, and then in 3 months from now, they might have a very different need, still all as a result of COVID-19. So those were some of the parameters around the program. Our application for this grant is very simple. It's again on a Google form. It's only a couple of questions. We didn't want the application process for this grant to be a huge burden on our nonprofits. We're here to serve our nonprofits, you know, not to add a ton of additional work through this request for funding. So we do have our grant committee is comprised of some of our board members. They meet weekly via Zoom to discuss and vote on the application request that we receive. Originally, we had guaranteed our nonprofits a 48-hour response time. I'm not quite to that slide yet, but that's okay. So originally we had told them that we would have a 48-hour response, and our board was just voting via email, but through some feedback from them, they felt that that process was becoming just a little too flippant, and so we decided to move to a committee process with the opportunity for more discussion. So in terms of how we've publicized this grant program, again, we sent it out via our e-newsletter. We have posted it to our social media. We've put it on our website, our specific COVID-19 website page. We also sent out a press release to local and regional media, which resulted in Tara went on the radio, the local radio, and did, you know, a pretty in-depth interview about the program. We've had local newspaper coverage, so our community's really supported, you know, our abilities to try to spread awareness for this program. In the month of April, we received 13 requests for funding, and our committee funded 5 of them for a total of $12,500 to go to nonprofits. And so far we've funded things like our local theater for some of their ongoing fixed expenses. Another neat one that we did was our Valley Hope drug and alcohol rehabilitation facility here. They applied for funding for some improved technology to support their online AA meeting capability. And so that was another grant that we funded through this program. Okay, so then phase 2 of our response has really been, so like I said, phase 1 was really all about our nonprofits. You know, this is why we're here. We want to serve and support our nonprofits. And then phase 2, we wanted to kind of shift our focus to serving our community and our businesses. So we put together, and this was inspired by, you know, several ideas that we'd seen out there floating around as well. But we put together a Norton County bingo game, which we call Norco Bingo. And really the goal is to foster community spirit and to support local spending and to inject some money back into our economy. So we received a $10,000 gift from an anonymous donor to support this program. And we worked with Next Tech to design the bingo card that is on the next slide. So it's there if you want to see it, but some of those tasks on the card. So what we do is we have this bingo card that's on our website that people can go download, or they can just take a screenshot of it, and we ask them to start completing these tasks. And the tasks are things like plant a garden, or complete the census, or do an act of kindness for someone. So we encourage people to accomplish the tasks, and while they're doing them, we ask them to post 3 photos to social media using our hashtag, which is #NorcoBingo. And then once they receive a bingo, so 5 across or diagonal, they go onto our website and they fill out an entry form, which basically just collects their contact information. And then we ask them for a quote about their favorite thing about Norton County. Just thinking ahead, we'll be able to use those in publicity, you know, in the future. And then we draw 3 winners a day at 3:00 p.m. and each winner receives $100 in bingo bucks, which are chamber bucks. They have to spend those chamber bucks by June 30th because we really wanted this to be a quick turnaround of spending, and they're encouraged to spend them specifically at businesses that are really struggling, as a result of COVID-19. The promotion for this has been through, obviously a ton through social media. We use that hashtag on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook every day. Our website, the newspaper ran a front page story about the program. We're running ads on KQ&K, our local radio, and word is just continuing to spread. We're seeing our submissions increase every day, so that's been really fun. And just as it's great PR for the Community Foundation because it directs people to our website, it directs people to our social media pages. We're able to collect names and contact information for our newsletter and for our database. And so we are on day 7 and we're going through Memorial Day. So we're doing this for a month with 3 winners a day winning $100. So I think I'm right at my time as well, but Tara, if I missed anything, please feel free to add.
You did great. You feel free to contact us. I think Nancy's going to provide our contact information later or shoot questions. We'll be happy to answer.
Okay. All right. Our next speaker is Londa Nwadike. Thank you, by the way, Tara and Bethany. We're just really appreciative of those very smart solutions and ways to bring the community together. It's very inspiring. So Londa Nwadike and Karen Blakeslee have collaborated to give us best practices for safety of retail products and store openings. Let's see. There's Londa. Thanks, Londa.
Okay, great. Hope you can hear me okay. And I can't see myself, so hopefully I look okay. But that's okay.
You look great.
Okay, thanks.
And we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So both of those presentations were great. Wow, lots of great stuff going on. It's really exciting to hear all the cool things that are going on across the state. So as she said, my name is Londa Nwadike, and I do work for both K-State and University of Missouri Extension. So I'm housed in the Kansas City area. So my current job is in food safety extension, but my PhD actually is in occupational environmental health. So I'm not currently working in occupational health by any means. It's been a little while since I've worked in that area, but it's an area that obviously I'm still quite interested in and is very, very relevant right now. So, and Karen's gonna help answer questions and so on if needed as well. But so this presentation is not really, we're not rehashing the governor's plans that were just announced last night, which I thought were great. But just to kind of talk about some best practices, kind of on helpful things to maybe fill in some of the questions between what the governor's plan that came out was. So, oh, that's right, Nancy, can you advance the slide? That's right, I can't do that by myself. So we'll talk about health and safety of the staff after reopening, and then safety of customers and products, and then resources that are available. And sorry, I have a 3-year-old in the room with me. Sorry. Go ahead, Nancy. Okay, Nancy, you can advance it. So, I'm a scientist, so I always like to, and I work in health, so I always kind of want to talk a little bit about I know you've all heard this many times, but just as a reminder, coronavirus is generally spread person to person through respiratory droplets. So there's currently no evidence that COVID has been transmitted through food or food packaging.
What time is it?
It's 10 o'clock. So we do know that it may be possible to get COVID by touching surfaces or objects that had the virus on it and then touching your nose, mouth, or eyes. but that's not thought to be the main way the virus spreads. But I just want to emphasize that, to just emphasize that it's really the person-to-person transmission that we're the most worried about. So when we're thinking about how to protect our businesses and customers and employees, that's what we really have to keep in mind. So, so when you are reopening after COVID, I listened to SourceLink KC put on a great webinar the other day, and they have a guide, and the link is at the end of the presentation. That was, I don't remember what it's called, but like Safe Opening KC, and it had some really good tips. And so some of these tips are from that webinar. But the first one is to learn, make sure that you're following all the guidance that's being provided by the governmental officials. So we also know that the state guidance is kind of the baseline, and then local public health departments might have stricter requirements. So for example, Johnson County, the county where I happen to live, May 10 is our release of our stay-at-home orders, where the rest of the state is May 4. So make sure that you're following your local public health guidance, because it might be stricter than the state. Another thing to always think about is making sure you're listening to your workers and your customers about their concerns. People have a variety of concerns, obviously, and just make sure that we are cognizant of the concerns that they have as well. And you might, hopefully be able to help educate them a little bit on some of their concerns too. Then communicating your plan, making sure that your workers, customers, and stakeholders all know, what you're doing to help protect their safety, which is really important. And then just implementing your plan. And, again, this 3-phase approach, the Kansas governor's plan, has a 3-phase, then basically the 4th phase is back to normal. But so different places have a little bit different, but just, looking at your plan for your local area, it will basically be some sort of a 3-phase approach. Okay, go ahead, Nancy. So just a few things to think about when you're thinking about protecting your staff. So like I mentioned, it's really this social distancing is the big thing that will protect your staff. Okay, and make sure that, if possible, try to, have your workers distance at, 6 feet from each other if possible. If possible, having deliveries being contactless as much as possible. Another important thing is having a lot of hand washing stations around, and then just encouraging that frequent hand washing. Again, we do want to make sure that, if there is any COVID or any coronavirus on a surface, that if your workers are touching it, that they're washing their hands. And so you can see the list there of, the things to make sure that you wash your hands after those events. The next slide here, okay, yeah, that's fine. So make sure you wash your hands with soap and water for 20 seconds. This slide here just talks about, just a reminder of proper hand washing technique, but 20 seconds is important, and making sure that you're using soap and lathering. It doesn't have to be, antibacterial soap or anything fancy, just typical soap is fine. Okay, go ahead, Nancy. As we've heard about many times, just really encourage sick employees to stay home. And obviously how that will look in every business is different, but just make sure that you are really encouraging anybody that is sick to not come into work, because that's the big way that the virus spreads. So providing PPE, personal protective equipment, face coverings, gloves to workers. And another thing that is important too is, just training them on their use. In the world of food safety, we often, see people wearing gloves and they think the gloves are magic and they're not gonna, no germs will touch them if they wear gloves. Anyway, I won't go into all those details, but make sure that you are training them on how to use them properly. Providing plexiglass shields for cashiers is a great idea. I see that in a lot of places that I go. Again, that helps that person-to-person transmission, reduce that as much as possible. If you can do non-cash payments, that helps. Things like restaurants, spacing out the tables and chairs, I'm sure there'll be more guidance coming out specifically for restaurants in the future. I know some people from KDA are on the call. We'll have more specific guidance for specific industries, but you know, make sure you're looking at the guidance for your industry. And I think the governor's plan had a lot of links to industry specific guidance too. I'm thinking about your customers' health, of course. You know, if your store has carts or baskets, you know, disinfecting those cart handles is important. Again, you know, encouraging customers not to come in if they're sick. I won't go through all these because, you know, I have just a lot of text here, but I think Nancy will share the slides after. But just making sure that you are cleaning the bathrooms more frequently, cleaning, you know, door handles, shelves, credit card terminals more frequently. You know, these are all important things to keep in mind. Another thing you could do is put up signs saying, you know, look at our products with your eyes, not your hands. You know, encouraging customers not to touch everything. As I mentioned, I have a 3-year-old and he touches everything. And so that's part of the reason why we don't go out very much, is because people like him just touch everything. So, you know, if you can reduce that touching as much as possible, that's very helpful. So cleaning, you know, just making sure that if the surfaces are dirty, that you have to clean it before you can disinfect it. This website here lists the different disinfectants that are, that, you know, can be used against COVID. Bleach is a very common one that you can use. So it's 5 tablespoons or 1/3 of a cup of bleach to a gallon of water is the ratio that we would recommend. Karen Blakeslee just came out with a really good press release this week that talked about don't I can't think of the right word, you know, don't have too high of a concentration of bleach, because that's a problem too. So make sure that you're using the right concentration and not, it can be harmful if you're using too high of a concentration as well. Okay, you can go to the next slide, Nancy. Here's some great information sources. Like I mentioned, that Safe Return KC publication I thought was really good, had a lot of just good information in it. The link for it is up there. Of course, make sure, like I mentioned, make sure you're talking to or listening to your local public health department, KDHE, you know, the state of Kansas obviously has great information to follow. Of course, you have to follow the local authorities' guidance on when different things can be open. The Kansas Regional Project Managers, Nancy put in the link for that as well. So that's also an important link to find out, you know, who's in your region to talk to. Oops, do you mind going back one more, Nancy? Sorry. CDC has really good information. A lot of this information that I presented today is from CDC's link there. OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, also has great information. One thing I will mention too, it is important to keep in mind workplace discrimination issues in this era. So the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission also has some good information there. You know, thinking about vulnerable populations. You know, I'm not an employment lawyer, so I can't speak on that at length, but just to make sure that that we're considering also those sort of aspects as well, that there's that we're not discriminating against employees. And then of course your trade association. So if you're a restaurant or a you know, beauty shop, that's not the right word, whatever the term is, you know, make sure that you're following your trade association's guidance, or whatever your eye doctor office is. Okay, you can go to the next one. And since I work in food safety, I know that many of you work in areas other than just food, but I just wanted to share, Karen's done a great job putting together this food safety and COVID-19 website on our K-State Extension website. So there's a lot of information on here. In addition to food, there's a lot of things about cleaning and disinfection and lots of different things related to food safe, to COVID that will be of use. Go ahead, Nancy. And then this is just our information. So my contact email is there, Londa Nwadike, and then Karen Blakeslee is our Rapid Response Center coordinator, and she's been doing a great job putting out a lot of press releases and so on rapidly lately related to COVID. And So we're happy to try to help answer questions.
So
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna open it up. Karen's on as well. I'm gonna open this section up for questions for this section, just so you know what else is on. These were the advertised people, but Michael Amick is on from the Small Business Association, and after we're done with these questions, he'll go into an update about federal programs again. This program may go longer than an hour. And any of you that can stay, we welcome you to stay, but because we value your sharing. But let's stop for a moment here and get questions for all of the participants. First, Jan, I think I saw a question for Heather, maybe.
If you did, it might have come directly to you.
Oh dear, okay, all right.
There was a setting in the chat that said everyone can chat, but for some reason they were only able to chat privately, so I changed some other settings elsewhere and it looks okay now.
Okay, we've got this pretty tight. We apologize. I know there were other people that wanted to get in, but we did lock it down pretty so that people couldn't. Whoops. So if there are questions, put it in the chat and we'll name them out to our guests. Okay, I'm going to read back through what I can read. It's about donations, I think. Okay, well, we may not be able to interact, but you're going to get, here we've got some more. Tara has given us, good. We can go into, afterwards, you can go into all of their PowerPoints and use all of these resources that they've given you. And you have each one of their contacts. So if you have some specific questions about how to do that, ladies, thank you all for your great sharing. I really appreciate it. Okay, now I'm going to unshare so that Michael can share his slides. And Jan, would you unlock? There we go. There's Michael. Can you unmute Michael, please? Oh, let's see. Stop share. There we go. Now maybe Michael can share.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, thanks, Michael.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, there we go. Very well. Can everyone see the full screen?
No, what I'm seeing is your work screen. Can you exhibit the slides? Launch the
Yes.
slides? Yeah.
There we go. How's that?
Great.
Excellent. I'm Michael Olmack with the Small Business Administration here in Wichita, and I was going to give a brief update on the SBA programs, the Economic Injury Disaster Loans, the advances, and the Paycheck Protection Program, along with some other information at the end. I've sent this slide deck to Nancy because some of these slides have a lot of detail that would only pertain to some people. So some of the slides I may go through quickly to save time, but you will have the slide deck later on when Nancy sends it to you. So just as a brief update, as of April 24th, with the economic injury disaster loans, this is the status, or was the status the end of last week. As you can see, they are processing them, but it is taking, and I'll just say it right off the bat, a lot longer than we imagined. We were having some technical difficulties, and you can imagine that the whole economic injury disaster loan program, even though it's been around for decades, it was really meant for regional disasters. And so when this national disaster hit, they basically are working on multiple systems, trying to reconcile them, I believe, and trying to get to as many, or process as many loans as possible. So we're beefing up staff to review them, and these are the current stats as of April 24th. As far as the Paycheck Protection Program goes, that's a disaster loan that lenders process, and that has made the whole program roll out faster because your local lender can process this loan, which is meant to cover the payroll of employers for a 2-month period, 8 weeks. And if at least 75% of a loan is used to pay for payroll costs and expenses, and an additional 25% for operating expenses, the entire loan could be forgiven. These are the national numbers, and I'll just direct you to the bottom of the screen. As of Wednesday evening, there were almost 960,000 or over 960,000 loans approved for 90 billion, over 90 billion. And one thing to take note of is this second round, they've really focused more on making sure the smaller lenders, the smaller banks and credit unions can process them and more equitably distribute the funds across the country. And so as of Wednesday evening, 61% of the total loan volume for the PPP was processed by lenders with assets under 10 billion. And so that's good to hear. The changes with the latest round of funding that was recently signed by the president, it allowed more money to fund the Paycheck Protection Program. It allocated more to smaller lenders, those in rural areas of the country. And it also provided 60 billion more to the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, or the EIDL loan as we call it, and another 10 billion for advances. It also allowed agricultural enterprises to apply for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. But as you can see on this screen, the agency is trying to process as many of the existing loans that were received prior to April 16th when the appropriations ran out. And as of now, I just checked the website, the SBA is not accepting new applications. We don't know the reasons for this. I imagine they're trying to catch up on the existing loans that are still outstanding. People are calling me all the time, wanting to know the status. Unfortunately, we don't have access to the disaster loan systems. And as I said, they're, I think, running on multiple systems right now because of the technical problems they're having. So even the Disaster Customer Service Center, they don't have access to all the applications. If people call, they may not be able to answer the caller's questions either about the status of things. It's not always, but sometimes that's the case, and we apologize a lot for that. But if people do have an application number for the economic injury disaster, the EIDL, and if that number begins with 3, that is a very good sign that it's being processed. However, I also need to mention that some people that applied for the EIDL and the advance on the new Streamline website that went online on March 31st or March 30th, that some of those people that applied, they didn't get an application number. However, I always ask them that, you know, when they entered their information, if at the end of the application there was a button that showed up, you clicked on it says, "I'm not a robot," and they click on that, and then if they saw the page that said that their application was received successfully, that is, they are assured that their application is in the system and it's being worked on a first come, first served basis. Some people have received an email. I think most have at least one email, but that's still caused a lot of phone calls. But there will not be email communication from the SBA until the loan is actually processed and ready for the borrower to review. Some people may notice that there's a credit inquiry if people have credit monitoring services. That's a good sign. That shows that the SBA has looked at their credit monitoring or their credit history for the approval of the loan. And the advances, they're trying to, the last bullet point there, they're trying to process them as fast as possible. So some business owners are receiving their advance, which is the forgiven grant part of the program. They're seeing that money in their banking account with no warning, no email. So I'm letting people know that that's possible. They may receive their advance amount in their bank account with no warning, but the actual loan itself will not be processed or deposited until they go through this next step, which is the email they will receive will have a link for them to click on a secure portal in the SBA system, and this is what that screen will look like. When they get in, they will look at the approved loan amount for the economic injury disaster loan. There'll be a sliding scale where they can accept the full amount offered or as little as $1,000. All of these loans across the country, they all have the same terms. It's a 30-year term. The first payment would not be due for 12 months after the closing. They have an interest rate of 3.75%. And it gives, when they use this tool, they'll be able to see their payment amounts and so forth. After they go through that, they'll then, as you see there at the bottom, the opportunity to sign their closing documents to formalize the loan. And within 3 to 5 business days, they'll receive those funds in their bank account. So people will have to go through this before they actually get the economic injury disaster loan itself. It's just the advance is coming without warning. And it's hard to believe that that's what's happening, but that's the way it's working because they're trying to address as many as possible. You may receive the idle advance, which is the forgiven part of the program, the grant part, but your loan, the loan itself may be declined for various reasons. And we listed them there for you to review. If people are declined, they will also receive an email with the specific reason. And the borrower will have, or the business owner will have the opportunity within, I think it's 3 months, to apply for reconsideration, submit specific documents that may be missing, or clear up something that was a mistake, to have it reconsidered. So getting on to the Paycheck Protection Program, most small businesses, as long as they are a small business by SBA standards, also private nonprofits, agricultural enterprises are able to apply for this program that is different than the economic injury disaster loan, obviously, and it's meant to cover the payroll for the business for a 2-month period with the opportunity to have almost, or if not the entire loan forgiven, if it's used for payroll. At least 75% of the funds are used to pay the payroll of the business. It is easier to explain this to a business that has W-2 employees, in which the loan itself is based on the average monthly payroll of the business for last year, but also the last bullet point there, self-employed businesses, sole proprietors, single operator, LLCs can also apply. They just have a different methodology of the maximum loan amount and the forgiveness aspect. Those types of businesses that are self-employed do need to file or complete their Schedule C for 2019 before they go to the bank to apply. This basically explains, I won't get into too much detail, but it's based on, for the self-employed businesses, their Schedule C, their net profit on line 31. That is how the PPP loan amount is, calculated, the maximum amount. And it's basically 2.5 times their monthly portion, if you will, of their net profit for last year. The forgiveness is 8 weeks of that compensation. So they get 2.5 months worth of the net profit amount, and then 2 months of it, or 8 weeks of it, is forgiven. And they could also be forgiven up to 25% to have more of it forgiven if they have these qualified expenses, as you see, if they were claimed or claimed on their Schedule C for last year. So it's very complicated, this whole thing. Self-employed with employees, this is sort of the things they need to account for to come up with a maximum loan amount. I won't get into detail with that. You can read it later. You can send this on to businesses that are wondering how this is all done. Farmers should use Schedule F, line 34, instead of a Schedule C, line 31. Partnerships you see there, Schedule K1, they should use that. The S or C Corps, you see the guidance there. And seasonal employers can use, instead of the average monthly payroll for last year, they can use a 12-week period, as it states there, for 2019, that would consider their average monthly payroll for this time of year. So it could be either February 15th, March 1st of last year through June 30th. And by the way, this PPP, Paycheck Protection Program loan, it basically, the last day to apply or receive the loan is June 30th. And of course, if the appropriation runs out again, it would be before that. So we encourage people to apply with their lender as soon as possible. These are some of the forms, the documents they will probably need to provide their lender when applying. And this is the critical part, as I mentioned before, to get the maximum forgiveness, in fact, to have the whole thing forgiven, they must use at least 75% or more of the the PPP funds to pay the payroll expenses. And I can provide a list of what is included in payroll expenses and what is not. The remaining 25% or less could be the operating expenses of the business. Now for the self-employed, everything depends on whether they had any of these items as a deductible or deduction in their Schedule C for last year.
Michael,
Yes.
there is a question, and we thought we saw that earlier. So that both of these have been reauthorized. So what you're telling us about is both of these are available again. They ran out once, but now they're available again.
No, the PPP is available. We're waiting for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan program to be open again for new applications.
Got it.
When the appropriation ran out on the evening of April 15th, they shut down the portal, and since then, no one has been able to apply for a new Economic Injury Disaster Loan. The fact that they haven't told us the fact that they have not told us that they're not going to offer it again or open it up again is a good sign, but we just do not know. We don't have any idea when that portal will be open again to accept new applications.
Very good. Thank you.
That's the key. So the key thing to remember with the PPP is once you receive the funding from your lender, after it's been processed, the lender basically has 10 calendar days from the time the SBA provides them with our loan number, authorization number. They'll have 10 days to disperse the full amount of the PPP loan to the borrower. And the date that that borrower receives the PPP funding in their account, the 8-week period covered by the program begins. So if they receive their PPP funding on Monday, that would be week 1, where they need to ensure that the PPP funds are being used to pay the payroll for that week and the next 7 weeks thereafter for the full 8 weeks. The thing that people need to know is that if people applied to both the EIDL and the advance as well as the PPP, they need to understand that the advance that they received will be counted against the forgiveness portion of the PPP. So what that basically means is their economic injury disaster loan, their EIDL advance, not the loan, but the advance, is in effect an advance on the forgiveness of the PPP. So people cannot double dip, and they wanted to ensure this because the businesses that applied for both programs shouldn't be at an advantage than those that only applied for the EIDL or the PPP. So there shouldn't be extra benefit or forgiveness, if you will, to businesses that receive both. So if people receive their EIDL advance, let's say it's $5,000, at the end of the 8 weeks, if the lender will calculate, look at their payroll records, calculate, and let's say they use 75% of the funds to pay the payroll, and they got the extra, less than 25%, the working expenses, and they completely zeroed out, and it would be a totally forgiven PPP loan. Well, the $5,000 that they received the advance basically takes $5,000 off of there. So I'm advising people that they will either need to pay the bank the $5,000 to zero out the PPP loan at the end of the 8 weeks, or the $5,000 balance, if you will basically turn into a PPP loan that will be assessed 1% interest and would need to be paid within the 2-year term. So I just want to make sure people are aware of that. And the other thing is, if the business owners actually receive the EIDL, the loan itself, the big loan, that they segregate those two loans. The PPP loan funds should be in the account that pays the payroll, and the economic injury disaster loan should be in another account that is used to pay for the ongoing expenses of the business, which could be servicing debt, utilities, whatever. But there needs to be, because if you use the economic injury disaster loan to pay for the payroll during the 8-week period, then that part of then what was spent by the EIDL on the payroll couldn't be counted in the PPP calculation. So it's kind of complicated for people that applied for both programs. And I could take questions after, or people can call me.
Michael, we're kind of running out of time, so if you can breeze through, that'd be great.
All right, well, this is basically a summary. These are issues, basically keep your full-time equivalents, your staff, rehire people that were recently laid off. That can help you maximize loan forgiveness. I already went through that. The IRS, the IRS is also offering employee retention credits for people that did not apply for a PPP. They might want to look at the IRS employee retention credit because it's very favorable for business owners. And there's also debt relief for businesses that have a 7A or 504 program, where the SBA basically will pay principal and interest of those loans for a 6-month period. And for new 7A or 504 loans, the SBA will pay the 6 months of principal and interest for loans made through September 27th. So talk to your lender. This is our contact information. And one thing I wanted to mention is the Small Business Development Center is going to host 4 COVID-19 assistance webinars next week. And so please go to the kansassbdc.net webpage to learn more about it. These are free webinars, very educational, and we'll also be giving an update on at least 2 of those. So thank you.
Fantastic. So thank you for great. And I know we'll really appreciate having those slides and studying them for those that want more information. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. We'll be sending out these recordings as usual, and Michael's slides. I safely got them. So I don't see any other questions. You know, one thing I clearly heard in Heather's, well, everybody's programs was the importance of working together. And I really appreciate that message. Anybody else? We had promised time for sharing, and okay, here we've got a question. Yeah, no, we've just thank you very much. We had hoped to have more time for sharing, but there's just so much meat in this presentation today. So I'll just call to your attention in the emails that I sent you all. There was information from Dr. Cheryl Boyer from the Center for Rural Development, has a resource for your immediate use to help you with online sales with touchless transactions for Main Street businesses. And there are more resources available on the Center for Rural Enterprise Engagement site. And so please check that out. I'll send those again and the follow-up emails. There's also a statewide database of COVID-19 resources that were developed by Chris Harris from the Kauffman Center that was intended to help you know about local programs that other people are doing. So in June, we had not previously planned a call, but I think we're gonna have one. The conflict that I had is no longer a conflict, just like your life. And so we will meet again in June. We haven't figured out that topic, but I would be open to anybody's suggestions. I'm gonna leave you with a little thought for the day. The world hates change. Yet it's the only thing that has brought progress. And I know that we're Kansans, and we will find ways to make that progress positive, just as we've seen illustrated on today's call. Thank you all for joining us.